Good evening to the students of the International Human Rights Law. Karibu sana, welcome to the class. And today that we are making the revision of the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, and that is posted on the screen, as well as I will also throw light on the introducing the human rights in international relations by Stephen McGlinchey, and he wrote the article. Let me throw light on it so that it will be a revision to you, and that will be a plus point for you to go through the examinations. During the Second World War, Adolf Hitler's Nazi regime that had ruled Germany since 1933 had been discovered to have undertaken the program of exterminating the Jews and other unwanted people such as the homosexuals, political opponents, and the disabled. Adolf Hitler, everybody knows, is a man who wants to eliminate and the Jews and the other unwanted people such as the homosexuals and political opponents and the disabled in what is now known as the Holocaust. So there was a Holocaust at the time of the Adolf Hitler's regime. An estimated 17 million people were killed by the Nazis through overwork in labor camps, undernourishment, and various forms of the executions, which included the gas chambers and firing squads. Of those, approximately 6 million were Jewish, two-thirds of the European Jewish population, especially with the reference to the fate of Jewish people. The phrase never again became a synonym of these events. Not only was there a desire to prevent the mass slaughter of the human being in the Third World War, which would likely to be nuclear, there was also a pressing desire to establish an international standard of human rights, what would protect the people from the atrocities like the Holocaust and from unnecessary large-scale warfare. A human being is a human being, and it is not the fault that he is born in the Jewish faith. At that instance, we are not treat them as a human being, and there should not be a Holocaust. We cannot exterminating the Jews, and if they make it so, the God has given to the multiplication of the progressive system would be there in the Jews. They will multiply in geometrically, 2 into 2, 4, 4 into 4, 16, 16 into 6, in that way. So if the regime would be there, they were killed that because most of them killed by the undernourishment, and some of them killed by the gas chambers, even the firing squads. So there is a Holocaust, and which leads to the human rights violations in the world. And there are also pressing desire to establish an international standard to what? To protect and promote the human rights, would protect people from the atrocities like the Holocaust in the Nazi time, in the Hitler time, and from unnecessary large-scale warfare. It is between the Rwanda also, between the two groups, there was a genocide would be there, and when such a thing would be there, human rights protection will be violated, and the people will be feel the disaster situations in such a timings. So set up there represent all the recognized nation states. The United Nations became a zero for discussion of human rights. Just 3 years after the organization was created, there is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, which is said to be the mother of human rights. Yes, which declaration is the mother of human rights? Donati Malibua. Which is the mother of human rights declaration?
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948.
Good, I appreciate. And here the Eleanor Roosevelt, and it is that person, foundation, hard work, groundwork, these were made. Of course, at the time it doesn't have the binding factors, but later on, the other two amendments have come and given the binding factor to it. So, virtually of the United Nations member states outlining the 30 articles that in principle extended to all the people. As a snapshot, the first 3 articles are as follows. Can you read the article 1? Can you read the article 1, which is there on the screen, and I am highlighting it? Unmute and read.
Okay, Article 1, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and the rights. They are endowed with reason and a conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood.
Yes, all human beings are born free. At that instance, and equal in dignity. We should not treat them. He's a Jewish, he's a Christian, he's a Muslim, he's a Hindu, he's a Sikh or Buddhist. Everybody is a human being with a dignity and rights, inherent rights. They are endowed with the reason and conscience and should be act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. The spirit of the brotherhood, a sisterhood, a familyhood, love and affection, this should be there among the human beings. That is the first article says. Article 2 says everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedom set forth in this declaration without distinction or discrimination of any kind, such as a race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Even a skin also, a red and a black and fair and white, no. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political or jurisdictional or international status of the country or territory which a person belongs, whether it be independent or a trust or non-self-governing or any other limitation of the sovereignty. So here all people are equal, irrespective of where they belong and which country they belong. Suppose if you go to the church, all people will sit in one row. Am I right? Irrespective of
Yes.
the rich or poor or any person. Any person, I said. Not necessarily he should be Christian, good go to the church. Even I myself also gone to the church to hear the services. Yes, I sat with them, irrespective of the caste, creed, and said, yes, because every religion will propagate and says truth, peace, security, harmony, brotherhood, sisterhood. These are the mythological reason because everyone would have a equal right to live in this planet Earth with good health. So Article 3, everyone has the right to life. Yes, liberty, they can move, and security of a person. Suppose if you go outside, if the people will kill you with the revolver or gun, then what is the security given by the state? That is the reason Tanzania will not allow to sell the guns as a vegetables in the market. Even in India will not allow sell the guns like a vegetable on the market or payment. Machinga will sell. In the United States of America, and I heard and I've seen also the people, those who are there, you can buy like a Viazi and Bamia, Chungu, the revolvers. Did you hear it?
Yes.
And there are a lot of shooting was there in these days, especially because one video I saw, it's prepared by my late friend who stays in New York, and he prepared the video. And if I have now, I will post to you, and he will give the clear explanation why such a thing happening. Because Republicans say something and Democratic will say something, and it is a culture, it is a cowboy culture there, and everybody is having a very latest model guns because they will be sold in the market. Of course, the people are making the fire, but the mob, generally the people are mentally retarded or they are the inborn criminals and are having the criminal mentality. So, Article 3, everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of a person. Yes, upon reading these, three thoughts may cross your mind. The first is that it represents a step change in the history. Yes, for the first time, an international document existed that sets all nation states a set of benchmark upon which their behavior towards the individual will be judged. So when such a thing would be there, naturally 30 articles where the members of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, then everybody have a good sigh because now they can stay or live with life and liberty and security. Secondly, the aforementioned comes from an international organization that is now part of the global system, in addition to the states. Now it became a global system and global phenomena would be there. Here it is important to understand the limits of the United Nations and the principles and declaration it may proffer. So at the time there is no such a strong binding factor are there, but now because of the additional charter conventions made it strong. Now, if any state will violate it or could not follow the decision of the any court, that is the Human Rights Court, then definitely sanctions would be there by the states, even by the UN Security Council interfering in it. The United Nations is not a sovereign, it does not have the territory, yes, because it is a body collection of all the states. Instead, it is an organization run intergovernmental and through the voluntary participation of its members. That's why we say international organizations are intergovernmental. Each government will participate it and each state will take the part and help it. In that sense, it appends rather than replaces the nation state power. So it doesn't have like a power. We have the military power, we have the police power in our state, and the state will see that the rules and the decisions of the respective courts will be implemented. Otherwise, the court decision become a futile, useless. These lead us to the third thing that may be basic understanding. They don't reflect today's global system, which remains one scared by the welfare and well publicized failures to protect the human rights. Now, it's because of this UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and people got the protection and they feel happy by taking the side. They can live liberally with the liberty, with full confidence and security. In that sense, it is easy to regard human rights as a failure because, much like international organization, individuals have not become a sovereign the way nation states are. Of course, as there is no universal police, international human rights police, and that's the reason a little mechanism would be there which is lagging behind. Otherwise, we can say that it is effectively working. And such a conclusion, while factually true and the product of our global system enduring the foregrounding of the nation state, risk betraying the moment that has gathered around the human rights. So here what we say is factually, the true fact is that the product of global system definitely will make the improvement in the international relations and a country's growth, and it's having the impact in many aspects of it, and for the growth is more and the disadvantage are less. Enduring the foregrounding of the nation state risk betraying the momentum that has gathered around the human right. So now the less betrayal would be there from the state to state, individual to state, and organization or instruments, the NGOs. Firstly, if you reverse the pre-1945 period, states often acted with their impunity by waging ever-escalating wars for selfish reasons. See, the people wants the selfish reasons. People wants their chair would be strict and they want to lead their life comfortably by ruling, by being in the politics, by being in the position, and that is their desire. But one day it would be there, they have to go with the empty hands. Like, the Alexander the Great. And he said, when he was died, let the coffin, let the hands will be outside, so that the people will see that, yes, people have come with the empty hand and go with the empty hand. Whatever the period you live here with harmony, with the brotherhood, with the peace, security, and that leads a good health on the planet Earth. And also by colonizing and enslaving the human beings. And you know that British are the empire they have made in such a way where the sun will not set. The sun will not set. Now, what is the provision of the Britishers now? Even they could not have money to maintain the palace of Elizabeth. That is, the palace is there now. The palace, they need the arms for its maintenance. So never we can make it out. See, success is like a peak. No one can stand over the success for a longer time. Is it clear?
Yes.
There may be no international sovereign to impose the legal punishment on states in the way a person would be prosecuted by the legal system within a state for a crime. The same thing he said. International, there the implementation is there, it will be a little weak because there is no international police. But the state is having the international police and the state is having the defense of its own. Are you following me?
Yes.
There may be no international sovereign because there is no a particular sovereign, there is no such a constitution. But the people will become a member for the charter and they try to help each other, intergovernmental, and see that a peace and harmony and the liberty would be there, prevailed, and health will be there on the planet Earth. So there is no international sovereign to impose a legal punishment on states in the way person would be prosecuted by the legal system of the country within a state for a crime. Suppose if you do a crime, definitely you will be punished without any excuse. But the normative power of the human rights is a growing element with our global system that has made such a historical violations of rarity of today. Now it is equipping itself, and the other states, neighbor states, will force the state which violated the international instrument norms, where the state is a party to the instrument. We can account for this further by looking at a range of international crimes that have been named and developed with a bulk highlighting cases where states directly cause or indirectly allow the unacceptable harm to the people, including in times of war. Of course, the war is very much violations are there, and at the time, but in ordinary time, but no, there is no war now. Only First World War and Second World War. There is no possibility of the making the Third World War because people knows there they will join together, and if anybody making such a thing, they try to curb it. Of these, perhaps the most well-known genocide, and we know the genocide, especially in the Africa, Rwanda genocide. Between the two sects, genocide is happened because of the power, which denotes the deliberate killing of the defined group of people. Because I told you, the clan domination. And if you see in the Ethiopia, there is also a clan domination would be there some areas, and some areas there is another clan domination would be there, but these people wants to occupy the chair and see that they want to rule the country. But any ruler is there, they have to rule. If he makes it too much, people will take the revenge over him. And if you happen to see the Sri Lanka position, the people are beating the ministers, including the any person, those who involved in the scams, and they are running in the streets, and there is a viral also it is going on over there. So if any person does a particular thing, your people take the revenge and they try to teach the lesson to them. So usually defined by the nationality, religion, or ethnicity, the group are there, different group of people. Precisely what the Nazis did in the Jewish people. At the Nazis' time, Holocaust was there, done. Many Jews are they are killed, but Jews also human beings. Okay, it is not their fault they are born in the Jewish family. Am I right? Yes.
Yes.
Which country having the majority of the Jews in the world? Which country having the total majority of the Jews in the world? It's a small country, but it dominates. If you know it, you tell me. If you don't know it, say pass on. Say pass on. Participants, did you understand the question? Why you are keeping quiet? Is it the problem of Matando? Malipwa, are you hearing me? Sakinapal, are you hearing me? The country, majority of the Jews are in Israel. And they are very entrepreneurs and very intellectual like Chaga. So, building on the momentum of establishing a range of legal norms, the responsibility of the product 2001, sometimes referred as the R2P, was endorsed by all the member states of the United Nations in 2005, and it sought to build a further and universal declaration of human rights and subsequent document by establishing the higher level of punishment for the worst violation by the states. In the 2005, they made it. In the principle, this involves the reinterpretation of the sovereignty at a time to the level of the individuals. Now, to illustrate this, and the responsibility to protect sovereignty can be imagined as a similar to the mortgage given by the bank in the United Nations to homeowner, a nation state. Should states keep up their repayment by treating their people well, then the bank will never trouble the homeowner. However, if the state does not keep up its repayment by acting in the way that cause its people undue harm and suffering, then that state might be repossessed by the international community. Okay, now they are taking the very much stringent activity because of the other charters under the authority of the United Nations. In practice, this could mean that a state comes under an increasing level of actions up to and including a regime by forcibly removed from power through the invasions. If any state make any such a violation, the other neighboring state will pressurize the state. If they don't listen it, they will cut the diplomatic relations and transportations, and even economic sanctions also will be made. At the last, they will approach to the Security Council to see that more stringent activity will be taken again by the state which violating the human rights or violating the norms of the international charter or declaration or treaties, either bilateral or multilateral. The caveat is with any major issues involving the international security, it has to be agreed by the world's major powers, again reinforcing where the real bottom line of this sovereignty lies. Now, by following the norms, it doesn't mean that we are losing the sovereignty, but we are obeying the norms, we are obeying the rules, we are obeying the treaty articles. It doesn't mean that we are violating, any state is violating their sovereignty. The responsibility of the product has been invoked in well over 100 resolutions at various levels within the United Nations. There are many resolutions passed by the United Nations to do what? Peace, security, and health on the Earth planet, signifying that it is not just something that exists on paper, but the human rights in the decades since the Universal Declaration have to come long way during the 2021 coup in Myanmar. Pro-democratic protesters even held by the R2P signs, and Myanmar, where the Muslims were killed over there, they will send out to you, and a very genocide has happened over there. Now, the International Court of Justice plus International Criminal Court, the case is going on, showing how deeply and widely understanding and expectation of these norms have proliferated, come out. Of course, some states will mistreat their people, and international action is often insufficient to prevent it or stop it, or an agreement on action cannot be reached as a prolonged as a civil war in Yemen and Syria demonstrators. Yet, understanding how the global system incorporates the human rights in a way that to go beyond the namely aspirational and the related place of the international organization is to be understood that both the aforementioned exist in the position that is gradually challenging the one absolute monopoly on sovereignty held by the states. So if any states will make the other state to force them or encourage them, then definitely the state will approach the UN, because the other state also a member of the UN. At that instance, UN interference would be there and take an action against the state which is forcing or encouraging the other state to do this particular thing. Like Russia make the things to the Ukraine. Of course, anything will be solved by the understanding only. The best justice is settlement. I repeat, the best justice is Seman.
Settlement.
Settlement is the best justice.
Settlement.
Yes, it also adds further weight to the layer cake of the reason why there has not been a third world war. Why the third world war is not there in the world now? Tell me. Because UN plays a very important role to see that there would not be any third world war. In this case, adding a legal and normative architecture then the restraint straight from endangering the human security on the scale that has been evident in the history. So international relations are very much important to have the nations to be grown, and human rights plays an important role to harmonize the one state to another state, to see that every state should be grown in geometrical way, in a vertical way, in a universal way, and growth will be seen over there. But if a state is involved always in the war, and most of the money will be spent on the war, and it's a disaster, there is no economic growth at all, and people are fed up. And if you happen to see Israel, they have a small number of the people, but every person will serve the military compulsory course for the 3 years to 4 years. Then only he will be given the certificate. That means every woman is a soldier there, Jeshi, every man is a Jeshi. And hence, even though around there are Muslim countries are there, but Israel never fear of it. The reason is they have such a confidence, and everyone is a soldier there. And moreover, everything will be controlled by the government. If a prime minister is there, or president is there, or any minister would be there, he will be treated in the same hospital where an ordinary man will be treated, and that to be no cost of payment. Bure, free. Are you following me? And here, if any treatment would be there, the government will pay the amount to the minister, and so they go to the United States of America or somewhere for the treatment. But ordinary person will die here only. Are you following me? Say yes.
Yes.
So there must be a multi-special hospital will be there, run by the government, and the free of cost medicine should be given. Then definitely the country will be flourished. But now people are selling the property of the public to the individual persons, and at the time it is very difficult. Even minting the money will be given to the a third party. Minting the money, currency, it should be the job of the government itself. The Tanzania Reserve Bank of Tanzania will hold it. How much amount should be printed? Of course, they do have the government machinery, or they will give to some of the parties to print it. But the block should be kept it in such a secret place, and I don't think that the blocks will be given to anybody. In the currency printing I am speaking about. So this was the thing which I want to share, this idea. What is the Universal Declaration and how it will be emerged over there? And there are some, yes, it is here. At least there are series of it. And I would like to show this one. And then I would like to make it, let us see. Yeah, this one will make it out. First we'll check it whether it is opened or not. We have to check it to know whether it is, because otherwise the sound will not come. I say share content. Yeah, I put it open. So now you will hear it. You will hear the sound.
Where, after all, do universal human rights begin?
Are you hearing?
After World War II, it was clear that the horrors of the war should never be allowed to occur again. Founded in 1945, the United Nations sought to prevent future atrocities by affirming, in its foundational charter, faith in fundamental human rights, the dignity and worth of the human person, and a commitment to promote better standards of life in larger freedom. In the years that followed, member states of the United Nations strived to develop the human rights provisions of the Charter and capture them in a single document. It took 3 years to agree on a common vision. On the 10th of December, 1948, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations.
Still, it is the first step in a great evolutionary process. It is the first occasion on which the organized community of nations has made a declaration of human rights and fundamental freedoms, and it has the authority of the body of opinion of the United Nations as a whole. And millions of people, men and women and children all over the world, will turn for hope and guidance and inspiration to this document.
While history alone can determine the historic significance of an event, it is safe to say that the declaration before us may be destined to occupy an honorable place in the procession of positive landmarks in human history.
The declaration consists of a preamble and 30 articles, with Article 1 powerfully proclaiming that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. No discrimination, right to life, liberty and security, no slavery, no torture or cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment, equal protection of the law, no arbitrary arrest, detention or exile, fair and public hearing, no arbitrary interference with privacy, right to freedom of movement, right to seek and enjoy asylum, right to a nationality, right to marry and to found a family, right to property, freedom of thought, conscience and religion, freedom of opinion and expression, freedom of peaceful assembly and association, right to take part in government, right to work, right to rest and leisure, right to food, clothing, housing, medical care and social services, right to education, right to participate in cultural life.
These human rights are not country-specific. They are not a reward for good behavior or particular to a certain era or social group. They are the rights of people of every color, from every race and ethnic group, whether or not they have disabilities, citizens or migrants, no matter their sex, their class, their caste, their creed, their age, or sexual orientation.
The Declaration has generated action for human rights protection in many ways. It has inspired hundreds of human rights instruments that together constitute international human rights law and a number of international bodies and mechanisms for human rights protection. The principles of the Declaration have supported the decolonization struggle and have been enshrined in the constitutions of the newly established countries which have joined the United Nations. The Declaration has inspired national and regional human rights protection systems, including legislation and institutions. And it continues to guide the work of human rights defenders and advocates worldwide. Today, the Declaration is available in more than 500 languages and dialects, and it has obtained the Guinness World Record for the most translated document in the world. The 10th of December, the day on which the Declaration was adopted, is celebrated each year as Human Rights Day. The Declaration emphasizes the relevance of human rights in our daily lives.
Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerted citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world.
Yes, this is the regarding the human rights. What are the articles says and what other things are there that you clearly saw it? Is it or not? And listened it. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
now I will throw light on this small one. I think it is open because I say share. Whether share content is there, it's open. Yes, it's open. So now you can also listen this one. It is the Human Rights Council basics. Of course, it's buffering. Of course, once it's buffered, then it will start playing it because it's taken from, so it takes time to buffering to see that it will be loaded and you could hear the Human Rights Council basics. Of course, we'll play this one or we'll play the another one because it's taking a long time to open it. Better we'll play what is the human rights. Everybody who knows declaration is there, and here the declaration. Yeah, this will be quite good. It's a small one, and you could hear it in a proper way. Still, yeah.
1948 rings a bell? Oh, yes, of course. It was in the last century. Grandma and Grandpa's generation. Legend has it that there were still dinosaurs hiding in caves up in the mountains. But that is something we're really not sure of at all. Back then, everyone was recovering from the Second World War and its 70 million dead, the most devastating conflict in human history. So in 1948, to make sure such atrocities would not happen again, the search for shared values began. Why? Have people unite around a strong symbol, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. What is less known is that it was adopted by the UN General Assembly and has become the most translated text on Earth. But what are human rights? The rights you are entitled to simply because you are a human being. In other words, everyone benefits from them from birth, without exception or distinction. The idea behind it is that these rights are like needs. They are absolutely necessary to live well. Without them, it would be the law of the jungle, and you'd risk being beheaded if your government didn't like your Facebook status. In the Declaration's 30 articles, there are the civil and political liberties, such as the right to life, the right to vote, freedom of expression, or the prohibition of slavery and torture. Rights are interdependent, indivisible, and interrelated. This means that if a right is not respected, a series of other rights won't be either. If you are homeless, you live in the streets, so you can't sleep. You get sick, you don't go to school, and won't find a job. Violation of the right to adequate housing triggers the violation of the right to rest, the right to education, the right to work, etc. These are economic, social, and cultural rights. Okay, so a great text was agreed upon, but who does what? Well, on paper, the state's mission is to take the necessary measures for the declaration to be respected. But in reality, there are some very bad students. The declaration is not a legislative text, it's an ideal. Its name says it all, it is a declaration. Therefore, it is not valid in a court of law. But most states have integrated human rights in their constitution, and therefore, they must guarantee them. You can defend human rights only if you know them. Everybody's role is to ensure they are respected. Collective conscience means that each and every person is responsible for everybody else's well-being. Therefore, we can all get involved, protest against injustices, and make the universal rights ideal succeed.
Yes, so now at least you can got an idea that how human rights will work and how it will be there and how it will be invisible and how it cannot be alienated. Being a human, it's enough that the human rights will be come to your place. It is like a DNA. So these are the things which I want to share with you in the today class. And tomorrow, again, we will see some of the points. And if necessary, at least 1 day, 2 days before, I can give the let off for writing your examination, because you said on 25th that you are going to sit for the examination. Am I right? Am I right? Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes. Perhaps 1 day or 2 days I will give the rest to you, but now I am dealing because it is a good for you for the revision, so that it will be concrete idea will come out and how we can manage it and how we can write it, how we can enlarge it, how we can extend it, depending upon the marks which is given over there. So with this, I would like to stop my today's lecture. Thank you very much for patient listening, and have a good night.
Dumisha uhuru na umoja.